After winning a Guitar Center contest at age 17, Justus West stayed persistent and motivated in his dream of mastering the guitar. Justus is now one of the most in-demand session and live players in the R&B, pop, and hip-hop scenes, playing with the biggest names in the industry. Though his name isn't known in pop culture yet, we have a strong feeling it will be very soon. We're excited to introduce you to our 5th artist collection with Justus West. As I stepped into Justus' home, it was a beautiful thing to see his curation of collectibles, guitars, awards, and everything that has been momentous throughout his journey. How early was music involved in your childhood?
I started playing guitar when I was 8. But I mean, music was always there because my mom is a songwriter. I remember her teaching me how to record her in a recording software called Pro Tools. That was probably like when I was like 6 or 7. Like I was recording her for demos that she was sending off to producers and all that stuff. Once I started playing guitar, one of my like early mentors, he would preach, but he also sang in the church, and he was a great guitar player. His songs that he would write, they weren't like traditional church sounding songs. They were very much so like Prince influenced, funky, Purple Rain sounding like church songs. It's kind of odd, but really awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
That's kind of where I started, you know, guitar-wise in terms of like, okay, you got to learn these songs by next week and you got to show up on time and do your gear. And no, that's not really the right guitar tone. Like, you know, change it up a little bit. So it was like where I really started learning like the early skills of gigging. If you can play in church and survive, then you can do like any big gig, you know what I'm saying?
How early did you move out for like your first music gig?
I did this Guitar Center competition with the country artist Vince Gill, and I was like final 5. They picked like 5 winners, basically. After that, he kind of extended the invite to move to Nashville and like hang with him and play with his band. And so I went to Nashville at 17. And then I turned 18, and my journey kind of pushed me closer and closer to LA until eventually I got here.
Usually we're so used to dipping out like 18 years old, right?
Yeah.
But for you, 17, you're dipping out of your home at an early age to go follow something that you truly have passion for. So what was that experience like? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it just normal to you?
It's still nerve-wracking. Like being an independent musician and also, you know, coming from a household of color, like my dad wasn't around and, you know, my mom just did the best she could. There's a lot to learn. Like you get out into the world and you're like, oh shoot, I don't really know much about how to do this at all. In the music industry, people will have tons of opinions about what you should do and where you should go and who you should work with. And so it's also like learning how to like filter that stuff out, you know, and just do what you feel you're supposed to do.
You know, a lot of people, they move to cities like LA or New York, right, to pursue something in music especially. Do you think that it's important to do that?
It really depends on what you want to do. If you're trying to create art that is specific to you or that is very original, then I usually recommend staying away. If you're trying to have a career, a collaborative career with like other music professionals, then it's better to come here. It's really advantageous to sometimes stay where you are if you have something special and kind of build a community locally. But ultimately, like again, if you want to work with big artists and you want to get on major tours and you kind of want to be like on what I'll say like the more national to international stage, then you want to come to where the hubs and the megas are, because that's where the bigger opportunities will be.
The majority of people who listen to R&B, rap, hip-hop music, right? They don't necessarily know your name yet, but you know, I bet they have multiple favorite songs of theirs that they consistently listen to that you've been a part of, right? Whether it was working on the production side or going on tour with people like John Legend, who you won a Grammy with, John Mayer, Mac Miller, Ariana Grande, Kanye West, Beyonce,
Yeah.
Thundercat. Like, it goes on and on. I could sit here all day.
Oh, this is great, yeah.
How do you think that you've created such a demand for yourself as an artist?
I take advice. I take good advice from people who have been down the road I've been down, but also like, I'm an individual. And I also had to learn early that like my path and all of my skills and abilities, there aren't a lot of people like me. And so I've had to kind of like also forge my own trail in a lot of ways. Every time I'm working on a record, I'm trying to figure out what I can do to add an edge to it.
So how do you work on your craft and learn how to excel?
You have to have confidence that you can do the job in the moment, but you have to have the humility to know that you could have always done it better. And so again, with just like making informed musical decisions, for me, it always just boils back down to like self-development, The music industry is pop culture and it's up and it's down and it's left and it's right and this is hot today and this is not. And so you have to make peace with the fact that like your thing might not always be the flavor. It doesn't mean that you can't be relevant for 30 years of the business, but you also still have to stay genuine because usually the genuine thing that you started with is the reason why you're the big name to begin with.
I love asking this question because everyone is so different on how they approach a creative project. In the beginning, right, it was so seamless. There's no pressure, no timelines. But as you become more established, we have to learn how to be able to hit deadlines. And there's this expectation to be consistent on our creative work, right? So what is your creative process, or like how do you approach an album?
I mean, with projects that have like a deadline, they also have a vision. And if they don't have a vision, then it's probably my job to create a vision. And so the thing, it just starts with like compiling as much information about what we're wanting this finished product to feel like. I'm very visual when I think of audio. I want it to feel like I'm laying in a field of grass and the sun is just on me and I see clouds, and that helps inform me to make a sonic palette. So then I can say, okay, this sound sounds like grass to me. And this sound feels like, being a kid. And now with that palette, we can think of, okay, now are we looking for something that's introspective or do we want people to dance? And so by using vision, I'm making creative informed decisions that are very efficient in nature. How I like to think of it, let's make a list of questions and then let's create the answers to those questions. I can then add in the details myself of what I feel like it should be. And then again, that's how you make like really original stuff that really stands out. And while everybody's chasing what the artist already did or chasing the pack, or I'm just chasing a feeling, an organic feeling, the most organic feeling I can find.
So a lot of artists, they face a lot of challenges and roadblocks, right? And it's just a path of uncertainty. What has been your biggest challenge so far as an artist, and how did you overcome it, or how are you overcoming it?
The first big challenge was managing my individuality. The easy path to success is to do whatever everybody's doing. And I've just never felt like that was me, nor have I ever really related to it. And so it just wouldn't be genuine. But in being an individual, you kind of end up by yourself. And the purpose for a lot of that music I created wasn't to put it out and to do all this stuff. It's just like, again, just chasing something that I feel is original, and maybe it finds a home one day or maybe it doesn't. But the more you cultivate that feeling and you cultivate being original, the easier you can access it. And so I've noticed that like to stay creative and to keep on the path I'm on, I also have to make peace with what I feel like is holding me back. Otherwise, I then become the thing holding me back.
All right, we made it. We're at the Greek Theater, right? This is where the celebration of life was for Mac Miller. And I know how important that relationship was to you, right? So I'd love to ask you like how that all started.
I got an email randomly one day from this guy named Daryl Robinson, who's a really amazing drummer from Philadelphia. And literally the email just goes, hey, would you be interested in playing for a guy named Mac Miller? And I was like, I mean, yeah, sure. At the time, I was very new to the LA scene. I didn't really know much about hip hop at all. So, the year went by, didn't really think much about it. And obviously over time, started learning more about Mac and about his music and realized like, man, I've been asleep. Like, this guy's freaking amazing. And then also like learning what he meant to culture and culture development. Didn't know we were gonna end up doing Tiny Desk, but obviously like as we got closer, more information started coming out about playing for him. And with meeting him, it was just crazy like how kind and just how normal he was, You can tell he really loves and he really respected music. And he really loved and respected his team and what we were bringing to the table. And so it just felt like we were all just best friends, like out the gate. I even remember when we did the Hotel Cafe shows and there were some like suits that had showed up late to the show. And man, that show was free entry. Anybody, it was first come, first serve. And when these people showed up late that they were like holding slots for, he said, man, let the fans in, let these people who really want to come and see. And like, it was just really beautiful to witness that he still maintained who he was all the way through his career. In the studio, we started creating and like that vibe was there. We made a few beats together, right before he passed. And he was just such a good person. And I think his example as an artist is something that I will follow for the rest of my career for sure.
What do you have in the works? Like what's in the pipeline? What's your next project? And like, why is it special to you?
I'm working on an EP right now called Take Care. And it's just outlining some big changes that have happened in my life over the past couple of years. And then also setting, I feel like a new precedence for where I'm taking my music sonically and like production-wise and messaging-wise. And I've grown a lot as a songwriter. It's my most adventurous project yet. It's also visually my most enticing project yet. There's that, and then, I've always got a lot of top secret projects under my sleeve. Can't really talk about yet, but all I'll say is there's some big names we talked about earlier that I'm coming back for round 2.
A lot of artists I talk to, and also myself, right, is that sometimes it's hard to stay inspired and to stay motivated to keep going and going. And, the journey's tough. It's long, it's uncertain. The finances could be difficult. There's a lot of things that you have to figure out on your own. You have to pave your own path. So how do you stay inspired to just keep going and going and going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to stay inspired for me, but I feel like the number one way is just the sense of purpose that I have. When you do art, and when you create something and then you see the impact it has on people, kind of that positive, just the deep-rooted thing that art can do for other people, it becomes a powerful thing. It makes you want to keep going, because when you realize that what you're making is actually helping people, like, man, when I write these songs, like what they mean to me, they'll mean to somebody else, and what it helped me through, it can help somebody else through. And so it helps me to just stay motivated. That way, even when the money's funny and when things are just seemingly going wrong, you just realize, man, it's about people. And as long as I get it out there, even if it's not as perfect as I was hoping it could be, we put a lot of judgments and we kind of hold ourselves back sometimes. But ultimately, as long as the intention is there and you're really genuinely doing what you're doing, then people will feel, what you're trying to communicate.